Welcome to the PaleyFest Fall TV Previews. I'm Reshma Gopaldas, head of video for She Media, and I'm delighted to be your host for this special conversation celebrating Apple TV Plus's acclaimed series, Pachinko. Today, I am so thrilled to welcome members of the series, cast and creative team. And so here they are. Joining us are Soo Hugh, creator, writer, and executive producer, Michael Ellenberg, executive producer, Media Res, Theresa Kang, executive producer of Marvel Pictures, and cast members, this amazing cast, Minha Kim, who stars as Sunja, Jin Ha, who stars as Solomon, and Lee Min Ho, who stars as Hansu. Welcome, everyone. How are you today?
Great, thanks.
Good. How are you?
We'll do the Zoom wave to kick it off. There it is. When I say this is one of the most beautiful shows on television today, just know that I watch a lot of TV shows for my job, and I don't say that lightly. It's a story that's impossible not to fall in love with, and it will make you weep out of joy and heartbreak almost every episode. So let's get started. Sue, I just want to know, let's go back in time a bit. What made you want to create this show? What inspired you about the story, and what attracted you to it?
Well, first of all, I should give credit to Theresa, who's here, who was my agent at that time at WME, who gave me the book and said, you have to read this. Of course, I just didn't listen to her. I think it took me like 6 months to read the book. And I remember getting the book, reading it on an airplane, and just not being able to even stop reading, and then sobbing on the plane and realizing that this was a story that had to have been told. But I just wasn't sure then at that time whether I was the right person to tell it. And then Michael came into my life, and Michael, and at that time Danny Gorin was there, and we were talking about the book, and we all loved the book and just wondering, could this actually be made into a TV show? And the one good thing about Michael also is Michael's fearless and will say, we're going to make it. And I remember that it was a 3-hour conversation at his office. And we just all jumped off the cliff together. It really was that feeling.
So you had a very successful, suffice to say, season 1. What can audiences expect from Pachinko in season 2, Sue?
I think the DNA is still the same, right? It's a show that is driven by a heartbeat, is what we always said. But the scale gets bigger, and I think the stakes get bigger as our characters face a lot of the world political, turmoil, World War II especially. But I always like to emphasize what remains the same from season 1. And I still think the intimate epic canvas, I hope we still kept that.
Yeah, you did. So Minha, I just have to say, as Sunja, you are like a beautiful, reliable narrator that I would watch do anything, and such a driving force in this show. So tell everyone, where do we leave Sunja at the end of season 1, and where does she begin this season?
So she begins, the end of episode 8 in first season, she was in Osaka, and she starts in Osaka in the first episodes of the second season. And no, I'm getting confused. And it's all in Japan, and it's gonna end in Japan. Yeah, and 7 years has passed since the last episode of the first season. And so, she, there's a amount of time in herself. And as an actress, I really, really tried to melt those period of time while I was creating the character.
Does it feel like 7 years have passed since you guys filmed a little bit?
Yes, 10 years has passed, I think.
I know. I don't think people get that television years and dog years are the kind of the same thing. Just as exhausting. So, this show is ultimately a study about how generationally strong women are. And you see all across the world, and especially represented in this show, how it's such a disservice that women weren't educated. It's a waste of their minds. And Sunja is a great example of someone who is brilliant, and she's a wonderful depiction of silent strength. So, Minha, what is your favorite part about playing Sunja? What do you think's the strongest thing that she has done to date?
I think the reason why I think she's really, really brave is that she's just ready to confront all the situations, that she doesn't anticipate the thing. She's just ready to, collapse or go high above the sky, and she's ready to do just face the world, and she, in order to protect her family and herself, she's just ready to do everything. And I think it's not just because she's brave, she's smart, and she has a lot of wisdom, and it's about the life lesson. So it's just not about the education that she has to carry on, but it's just I think it eventually related to the love that she's having inside of her heart. So yeah.
I think she is a survivor, and the biggest mistake everyone makes is underestimating her. And it's just such a beautiful story. So Jin, where do we leave Solomon at the end of season 1, and where do we pick back up this season?
We're finding Solomon at the end of season 1. I think we thought that was the lowest point that maybe he could achieve. Having just blown up the huge deal that he had traveled to Japan to execute, he self-sabotages very unexpectedly. And then on top of that, because of that, he's stuck in Japan because his visa's now become expired without his job. And he is grieving in the in-between time between season 1 and 2. He's grieving the loss of Hana. And we don't exactly meet him there, but that is the emotional underpinning with which we meet him. He's trying to, similar to season 1, he's pitching himself to these two figures of authority or possible fund investors. And it's a very different scene. It's similar in that there is still the confidence, but if I'm remembering from season 1, that confidence is quite real in his mind. It feels grounded for him. It feels entirely earned, and it makes sense. And then in this time at the beginning of season 2, we find him pitching himself, and also I think more feigning confidence, because we understand as an audience where he's coming from immediately before this, and also how actually desperate he is to make this work. And then very quickly we see that fund effort imploding. And so I think at the beginning of season 2, the floor beneath him falls out again. And then the rest of the season, I think, is us getting to witness, as it beautifully echoes and parallels Min Ha and Min Ho's timeline in their moralistic choices and decisions. It's echoing Solomon's journey as well throughout season 2 of what are the choices he makes when he's faced with moral choices, and why.
That's such a good explanation. And I would describe Solomon at a crossroads in season 1 and season 2. And, one might even say that he represents the two sides of his grandparents. He has a conscience like his grandmother. What do you think Solomon wants? Do you think he wants money, power, love? Does he want it all? This is therapy with Solomon.
No, but that's so real. I mean, these are the things I'm thinking about all the time, just in thinking, like preparing a character. It's the psychology of it that is always the most exciting for me. I think it changes. I think it, as all of us, our priorities shift as we experience loss, experience joy, changes. I think that he wants it all at the beginning because he has nothing to lose. We're finding him at a place where he's like, I've got nothing now. That's what he thinks.
Yeah.
And from that point on, the idea would be there's only up from there. And in that sense, I think he's giving over to a little bit. He's giving over to his like full ambition. You know what I mean? Like the full Shark Tank ambition that it seems like the world is telling him, this is how you're going to actually make it. You have to just be ruthless. And so for him, it's like, all right, well, fuck it. I'll do that then.
I see that. So Hansu never ages, runs on evil. What is Hansu's skincare routine? That's what I'm So, I have to say, you play the duality of this character so well. Does it sometimes feel like you're playing two different characters? So answer that, and also tell me, where do we see Hansu in the beginning of season 2?
일단 빠치코 시즌 1은 땅을 딛고 살아가는 사람들의 생존에 관한 그리고 그 시작에 관한 이야기였다면 이제 그 시즌 2에서는 또 다른 터전에서 그렇게 치열하게 살아가는 사람들의 또 그 관계 속에서의 사랑에 관한 이야기라고 생각을 하고요. 그리고 이제 시즌 2에서 사실 저도 처음 연기해보는 나이대 연기를 했어야 하기 때문에 저 앉아 계신 쇼러너이자 작가이신 수유 작가님이 한 20kg 정도 살을 찌웠으면 좋겠다라고 얘기를 했었는데 차마 20kg 정도까지는 못 찌우고 그래도 이제 좀 증량을 해서 어떻게 보면 또 기댈 곳이 이제 알코올이라든지 그러니까 아주 외롭고 또 고독한 자신만의 생존의 방식으로 살아가고 있는 한수를 표현하기 위해서 아주 좀 거친 모습으로 표현을 하려고 노력을 했던 것 같습니다.
Terrific. When do you think the dark side of Hansu was born? Do you think it came out of survival, or do you think there's an element of him that was always this ruthless? And do you see this character as a hero or a villain or somewhere in between?
시즌 1 7 에피소드에 나왔다시피 어떻게 보면 굉장히 맑고 절대선이었던 소년이자 청년이 인생의 가장 극적인 순간에 살아남기 위해서 결국엔 강해져야 했고 그래서 이제 절대 악의 삶을 살 수밖에 없었던 시대였다고 생각을 하고요. 그리고 어떻게 보면 저희 시청자들 관점에서는 한수라는 인물은 절대 피도 눈물도 없는 악인처럼 보일 수도 있겠지만 결국 그는 자신이 처해진 상황 속에서 가장 중요한 것이 인간으로서 느껴지는 그런 감정들이 아니고 더 합리적이고 효율적인 방법으로 생존의 방식을 택하는 거라고 생각을 하기 때문에 저는 그 악인처럼 보이는 한수의 그런 모습들이 되게 짠하게 느껴지기도 하고 그리고 마음이 많이 가는 그런 인물이기도 한 것 같습니다.
That's a great description, and I think we all would want to be a fly on the wall if Hansu did ever go to a therapist. That would be amazing.
Sopranos,
Michael and
Pachinko.
Teresa, I want to know, guys, this is such a big production. Like producing this must be a monster. So, Michael, let's start with you. What drew you to Pachinko?
Well, it's Sue was saying when I read the book, one, it's to be sort of simple about it, it's a story you've never seen before. It's an immigrant story that's completely unique. And it has a unique resonance here in the United States while being emphatically both a Korean and a Japanese story and the Zainichi story. And so it was an intoxicating opportunity. And then the prospect of doing it with Sue, both a brilliant creator, brilliant storyteller, and I appreciate she said, I'm fearless. She's quite fearless herself. And so something that looks hard, it was only, Theresa and I have spoken about this, it was only when we were released last season 1 where you really realized everyone said, oh, how hard this was. I don't think we appreciated that when it started, So it seemed kind of obvious to us that this was a great idea. And that kind of naivete powered us through. And so that was kind of the initial draw. And then this season, I think what's so exciting and to pick up on something Min Ha was getting at, if season 1 was more about will these people survive on some level, this is a season more about, well, can they thrive in or not? And it's Pachinko, so it's complicated, but it has a different tenor, and I think it's the same language the show's established. But because they've kind of held on, they all, this is a season where almost everyone's trying to make a bigger move for themselves and seeing where it takes them. And that just, so the series, you always want to be as vital as you were in the beginning. And I think Sue and this remarkable cast have kept the bar high.
Yeah, and you want these characters to be happy so badly. And you remember what show you're watching, and you're like, "That's not going to happen."
In
Teresa,
moments, in glimpses.
In moments,
yeah, you
yeah.
get
There are some
little
really
flashes.
beautiful Paley.
Yeah.
I think there was
Season
one
two.
moment in season 1 where I was like, I think when they were doing laundry together, I was like, "Oh, this is such a cute
Oh.
love story," and then it really took a dive.
Yeah, but your
Like,
question
never
about
doing
the
laundry
hero,
with a guy again.
it was interesting hearing you talk about the hero villain question, because
Yeah.
I think as viewers, I think you do love everyone though. And the moments of joy this year, it's exciting just watching because of this structure, we're seeing everyone on screen. So that, no disrespect to our cast, you become actors again. And so you connect to them as performers, and their moments of joy are, at least for me as a viewer, what I remember the most, even though they were fleeting. So that's as much a testament to their performance as anything else.
Teresa, last but not least, of course, I want to get to you. Like, what inspired you to become involved with this project? And was there a favorite, like, I love how you guys weave history throughout this story. It's just like, it's the way history should be taught, to be honest with you. It just brings it to life and makes it more serious. So what inspired you to get involved with Pachinko?
The book was incredible, as Sue mentioned, and when I read it in manuscript form, I had my first son at the time, and he was very little. And I remember holding him. He's Korean, obviously, and I wanted him, growing up in America, to know the history of where his ancestors came from. And the book tackled a part of that history really well. And I knew Sue could adapt it the way that it needed to be adapted. And Sue fought me for sure, but I knew she'd get it. I knew she'd love it. The one thing I do want to mention about producing the show is I feel like this show is all about pushing the limits and expanding. As Sue mentioned, as Michael mentioned, it took a bit of fearlessness to even believe that it could be possible. And now we have Shogun, now we have many other shows, Squid Game, thank God, and all boats rise with the tide. But in season 2, especially, when I think back, it's really remarkable that we have Yoon Yo-jung speaking in Japanese. This is not a language that she knows. And the way that she performs in another language and has to embody that character, same goes for Jin. He does not speak Japanese. Korean is let alone his second language. So I think that was remarkable. Min Ho had to learn Japanese. Min Ha, everybody. And then the 3 directors that we had, season 1, we had 2 Korean American directors of different language fluency of Korean. And then season 2, we had 3 different directors of completely different backgrounds. So one is a British woman, Leanne Wellham. Our other director is a Taiwanese American director, film director, Arvin Chen. And then our last director was a Zainichi Korean filmmaker, Sang-il Lee, who only speaks Japanese and Korean. So when I think back on season 1 and season 2, I think the spirit of the show and the people involved in the show is very much people who are fearless and can see expansion. And I think you need that mentality to be a part of the show, because it's not easy.
What a great answer. And I have to say, just as someone whose grandparents and parents are an immigrant, and I get asked all the time, do you speak Indian? I can't wait for you guys, when you finish Pachinko, to do something on that culture, because educating, for so long, all of our history has been ignored. And so it's like amazing how you guys have done this show. I can't speak more highly of it. So Min Jin Lee, I want to talk a little bit about Sunja and Hansu's relationship. How would you describe their kind of relationship evolution from season 1 to now? Minha, let's start with you. Do you think Sunja loves Hansu? What is their draw to each other?
I think Sunja loves Hansu so much that it almost destroys her. Yeah, it's kind of, it's that powerful. Like, I've always, Sunja always thought, I remember the conversation with Sue about the relationship between Sunja and Hansu, and I told her that I think Sunja would have thought of Hansu almost every single day. Like, but she really tried to resist it, but she couldn't. And there in the second season, there is the moment where she accepts the fact that she cannot live without him. And I think that's the moment where their relationship got deeper and stronger. It's just not about the, romantic love. It's about their relationship, about responsibilities towards the kids. And they just became like an old best friends. But she doesn't want to accept it, but it's the fact. So again, back to the love towards Hansu, she loves him so much. And that's the reason why she hates him so much at the same time. So it's very complicated, and it's almost a very instinct love, which is not rational. It's not in the head, it's in the heart, like 100% on the heart. So it's really, really complicated. And
I like that. Their Facebook status, it's complicated.
yeah, it's complicated. I cannot, every time I try to figure out what's the feeling of it, and I really wanted to just describe, but I cannot. I couldn't find any vocabulary for it. So I think that's the answer for that.
Yeah, I think the way you described it was perfect. And Lee, to you, what is it about Sunja that draws him to her? That he's willing to make almost every sacrifice except giving up power.
결국 한수가 선자라는 인물한테 이제 시작하겠다라고 마음먹은 순간 그는 이제 멈출 수가 없는 사람이기 때문에 그녀에 대한 감정이 걷잡을 수 없이 커졌을 거고, 그리고 또 이제 내가 소유하지 못하는 거에 대한 욕망이 크게 발현됐을 거라고 생각을 하고요. 그리고 기본적으로 한수는 계속 앞만 보고 달려가고 돌이킬 수 없는 뭔가 더 큰 무언가들을 계속 원하는 인물이지만, 결국 그를 존재하게끔 할 수 있다라는 거는 선자와 노아뿐이라는 걸 알기 때문에 더 그들을 통제하려고 하고 그들을 더 소유하고 싶어하는 그런 욕망이 발현됐다라고 생각을 합니다. 그렇기 때문에 그는 끝까지 더 많은 것들을 원하는 이유도 이들을 내 바운더리 안에서 더 잘 지키기 위해, 그리고 잘 보호하기 위해서 출발을 했다라고 생각을 합니다. 네.
Yeah. Well, that's a form of love. Minha, I have to ask you a question. If you were friends with your character, what relationship advice would you give her? I'd tell her don't date the first guy you do laundry with, but that's just what I'd say.
About Hansu?
Oh, yeah, about Hansu.
Oh, I will tell her break up right away. I'm gonna just, he's a bastard. What are you saying? Like, yeah, I would say that if I were her friend.
Yeah, I love it. Soo,
But
how
I
do
think
you...
at
Oh,
the
go ahead.
same
Sorry.
time,
Minha.
at the same time, I could see her so passionate about him. So I think if I were her best friend, I think there's no way for me to stop her.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they seem very drawn to each other in spite of all the signs that they shouldn't be together. So Soo, how do you view Sunja and Hansu's relationship? Do you think they represent good and evil, or are they star-crossed? And, what about her relationship with Isaac, which is also really beautiful?
That's such a tough question. It's you said it's complicated, but what I think is really interesting, what I love exploring, and what we all really talk about in our show thematically is there's two very different worldviews presented in our show, right? There's the Sunja and Isaac model that says a life lived well, it matters, right? The decisions you make, and the people you love, and the families you create. And there's Hansu's worldview that says, as Minho was saying, accumulation, the zero-sum game. And we see this really played out in season 2 in the two boys, in Mizazu and Noah. And you realize this is what generational learning is about, which worldview you're going to get. In an ideal world, I think you have to be a Sunja and a Hansu. In season 1, I used to think Sunja's worldview was the right worldview and Hansu's was the wrong. But I think increasingly in this world, when you see what's happening, I think you need a little bit of both to survive.
Terrific. Yeah, I actually would totally agree with that. So Jin, as I mentioned before, I think that Solomon really has the qualities of his grandmother and grandfather. Do you feel like Solomon is slowly going maybe towards the dark side? And I want to do a Luke, I'm your grandfather Star Wars joke here, but I'll resist it. What do you think? Do you think he is taking on who is he emulating more, or is it both of them?
Between the two grandparents, or were you
Yeah.
talking about Hansu?
Yeah, Sunja and Hansu.
Ah. Well, technically, he's not my grandparent. There's no blood relation there.
I know, but I feel like if
No,
you
but
had
you're
to-
absolutely right. He is
Yeah.
absolutely a spiritual, as even Soo has said, like, is a spiritual
yeah,
ancestor to Solomon. Oh, I think that's the journey of season 2 for Solomon, for everybody, but especially Solomon. It's because for him, he has Sunja in real time there, reminding him, asking him, you know, did you hurt the landlady? Is the landlady okay? Why did she decide to sell? You know what I mean? Like, make sure not to forget who you are.
yeah,
Her conversations that she has with Mozasu, grown Mozasu, about their concerns of Solomon and is he breaking bad? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's all rooted in Minha's Sunja and what we get to see of her raising Noah and Mozasu with the shadow of Hansu as well.
yeah.
Because Hansu also throughout season 2, he's doing extraordinary feats of generosity and giving as well. And how do we reconcile that? But that's the difficulty, is that within a character like Hansu, there is such worlds of contradicting intentions, motives, actions. And so similarly, I think that's very much the parallel for Solomon as well. In season 2, we're seeing him some acts perhaps of moral soundness, and then other moments where he clearly chooses his own ambition or his drive over the well-being or wellness of other people close to him sometimes. And in a way, yes, I do think we're starting to see him break a little bit, but at the same time, I don't think it's a lost cause. I think we're witnessing, in the luxury of TV, where you get 8 hours to tell one chunk of a story, now is the process of him starting to define for himself what drives him, what's important to him. And I don't think he quite knows yet. Also, because jumping to the end, when he sees the fatal consequences of some of his actions, business actions,
Yeah.
I think that's a real jarring wake-up call for him
Yeah.
to recognize, oh, moving forward, now I've entered a whole new realm of, I thought my ambition would just be affecting me, maybe. I'm understanding it's affecting other people maybe around me negatively. I'm thinking of Naomi, but then suddenly it's been ratcheted up to life and death.
Yeah.
And his direct hand in that.
Yeah. I think one of the what makes up the heart of this show is Solomon and Sunja's relationship. What have you learned working with Yoon?
Oh man. She's a reminder for me in ease in performance. She's all the homework is there, everything's there, but then when I'm on set with her, it's just being. And it's a wonderful reminder, because I think for me, especially in my youth, in what remains of my youth, I find myself, my urge is always to try to do more. But ultimately, I think the more time I spend with people like YJ and get to work with her, there's a lesson to be had in trusting the process up to that point and then letting go completely, and so that one can be, especially with dramatic material, to be more easy with it, I think.
So this is a question for all of you. You know, this show has the great benefit of being based on this beautiful book. So Minha, I want to start with you. Have you read the whole novel? And if so, how do you use it to kind of enhance your performance, or how do you rely on it?
Well, I read the novel right after I got a second callback while I was doing the audition. And then that was my first and last time I read the novel, and it's based on the novel, so I have to read it, and it's beautifully written, so I couldn't put it down. But I was trying not to influenced by the novel while I was doing the performance. I was just trying to stick on the script itself, and because as a performer, it is quite boring to anticipate all the futures. It's our first time confronting all the situations. So I was trying to, um, just I know the book exists, and I know how it flows over the generations, but I was trying to delete it from my mind. So yeah, I can
That's fair.
pretend that I'm facing it for the very first time.
Lee, how about you? Do you use the novel as a reference? Do you go back to it, or do you feel like Minha does? I read it once and then I'm going to step away.
네, 저 같은 경우에도 원작이 있는 작품들을 대할 때 그 또 원작 안에 갇히지 않기 위해서 좀 많이 지우는 편인 것 같고요. 빠친코도 마찬가지로 이 작품이 추구하고 가고자 하는 큰 메시지는 깊게 이해는 하는 건 중요하다라고 생각했고, 다만 한수라는 캐릭터를 표현함에 있어서 갇히지 않으려고 크게 구애받지 않았던 것 같습니다.
Yeah. So Jin, similar question to you. Is there any part of the book that when you read it, you're so happy that it made it in, or is there a part of the book that you're excited for season 2?
I'm in a slightly different situation from Minho and Minha in that my character, because the book is chronologically linear, shows up quite towards the end and is a rather small portion in the book. So the first season covers about all of what's written in the book, and even within there's some adjustments and changes from the book. And season 2 on, it's all original material for Solomon's 1989 timeline, which is thrilling.
Yeah.
To have such deep and rich source material to work from, to build from, but then to have the freedom, or to be a part of the group that has the freedom to build from there, kind of however we feel. Even in an earlier interview, Sue was telling me, she was like, "Oh, there's a new ending I envision possibly for like the end of the show."
Oh,
Which was
wow.
different from something she had told me earlier. And I was like, oh, that's the amazing thing about 1989, this timeline, is that we do have that freedom, different from the earlier timeline. I read the book early on, as soon as I saw that Apple TV Plus had bought the rights. And then I was like, all right, let me read that.
Yeah.
Incredible book. But then I thought to myself, if they choose to do this in the authentic languages, I have no shot at this job. But if they maybe try to do like English with like a bunch of different accents, I have a pretty good shot at this.
And here we are.
Yeah,
Wait,
here we
Sue,
are. And I'm
have you
thrilled that they
written the
chose to
ending?
do it. Huh?
Sue already wrote the ending?
Well, I think not written, but like, it's in her mind, it's
Okay.
all there. And for me, similarly, I read it once and I thought maybe during production of season 1, I'd read it again. But I remember having a conversation with Sue about it, asking her what she thought. And ultimately, I also decided not to. And specifically for Solomon, it's because there were enough small detail changes, but also some kind of big changes, maybe character-wise. In the book, he comes to Japan with an American girlfriend, I believe.
Mhm.
And that's totally different. And also for me, because the book was about my character's grandmother's, everything before I was born.
Yeah.
I wanted it to remain in my mind as this sort of ethereal memories that I had read some point years ago, in a similar way that I'm like, my relationship to YJ's character would be, oh yeah, she told me about that time she made and sold kimchi, but I don't really know, I don't know the detail, but like I heard about it. Yeah. And I sort of wanted the book to exist in that ghost-like realm within my head as well.
Yeah. So, Michael and Theresa, I want to know, like, what is your favorite part about working with this cast? How have they surprised you? How have the scenes where you read it in the book and then you saw them doing it, like, what is like a scene that they just blew you away with?
In season 2, one of my favorite scenes of Hansu is in the Japanese garden and at this dinner table scene. Like the power shift and the power play that's happening is
Yeah.
really fun to watch. With Min Ha's character, younger Sunja, seeing her now in the second stage of motherhood, but also finding herself again and what fills her cup. How does she want to live her life? Because what happens towards the end of this second season is she accomplishes a lot of what she had planned to do for that moment, and then things drama happens. With Jin, and I would also say YJ, what's so remarkable is it blows me away that they do not speak Japanese at all. And they learned it for the show. And then performing it on top of that and finding that character, every scene is remarkable whenever Jin is speaking as Solomon's native Japanese character. And of course, YJ too. So those, and I have so many more, but if I had to choose just for now.
Michael, would you add one?
Yeah. Well, I guess, it's when you do these interviews, it's exciting because you get to hear the cast speak and kind of get inside their heads. They're all these characters are they're badasses, actually. I know it seems like a slight thing to say, but they're so tough, so formidable. They get through they're fairly fearless. They tackle so much. And then they're all kind of soft at this, and then there are these moments where you realize just how completely soft they are, So for Minho, both season one, the flashback episode was kind of just astounding, right? And then this year, when he's at dinner with Noah and his girlfriend, and you just, and this vision of an entirely different life that he thinks maybe he's finally made it happen. And then you can see it's going to slip away, and when he explodes as it comes undone, it's really devastating and heartbreaking. Minha, Sunja, she's so, she's so tough, so, and kind of always enduring. And then she gets in the countryside in the middle of World War II in a kind of horrible situation, but there's this glimmer, right, of what could be. And, and her face lightens and softens. And in a way, it's a lot of what happens there for her is more subtle than some of the other big dramatic things. But it's beautiful and arresting. And I love the way Minha was speaking of it, because you see it in those moments, and to manage that duality with Sunja, which is she has really contradictory impulses, and she has a kind of ego that keeps her passions in check. But you can always see the passions, and what she said was so beautiful. And then maybe I'm a softie this year. I liked all the Jin. I hope it doesn't embarrass you. I liked all the romantic stuff with Naomi this year, because there was something so beautiful and tender about it. And he's and Jin, Jin's take on Solomon. Solomon's wildly intelligent, formidable, dangerous, right? In this series, and you see he kind of perfects a lot of what he was kind of trying out season one in a kind of business realm. And then with Naomi, and you and Anne have such great chemistry, and those moments where he glimpses what else could be for him, and it's pretty devastating and beautiful. And I love the way you were discussing it, because he both gets vengeance on the people who've crossed him, and is simultaneously satisfied with himself and disgusted with himself. And all the cast are able to maintain those dual ideas at the same time, right? And that's a hallmark of great writing. But it takes great acting to do that, right? So, so they're never just one thing, and that's why you can't look away.
Yeah. So we only have a few minutes left. So to wrap, I want to know from each of you, and Minha, I'm going to start with you. What is something that you're so excited for the audience to see this season for your character?
Compared to the first season, I guess audience can see more of her laughter, and they can see a lot of her smiling, and I love about it. And because I think while I was working on it, I was trying to not to lose the hope and joy, even in that hard, period of time. So I think people will find out more of her softened part of her
Great. So if you had to pick 3 words to describe Sunja's arc this season, what 3 words would they be?
That's hard.
Yeah.
You too
You gotta
hard.
prepare for it.
Jin, how
Well,
about you?
yeah,
You can
how about
lead.
you?
3 words. Yeah, it would be 3 words. It would be burden. Oh fuck. No, this is really hard.
Burden and oh fuck. Okay.
Yeah, burden. Oh, that's great. Yeah, that works. Burden.
Yeah,
Oh
that
fuck.
works.
Yeah, great.
Lee, how about you? What is one scene, very quickly, because we only have a few more minutes, that you are so excited for the audience to see, and 3 words to describe Hansu this season?
일단 스포일러가 될 수도 있긴 하지만 또 노아를 만나는 장면이 또 어떻게 보면 또 선자를 중심으로 한 그런 가족의 일원들의 가장 또 큰 임팩트가 있는 씬이 될 거라고 생각을 하고요. 결국 한수는 3 단어로 요약을 하면 늘 희망, 꿈, 사랑이 존재하는 저는 인물이라고 사실 생각합니다. 그게 이제 발현됐을 때 시대적 배경과 그리고 또 한수가 지금의 가치관을 가질 수밖에 없었던 상황들이 있기 때문에 비록 이게 잘못된 방향의 발현일지언정 그는 항상 희망과 꿈과 사랑이 있었던 인물이라고 저는 생각을 합니다.
Hope, dream, and love. What a great ending note for all of us. Again, guys, thank you so much for chatting about this brilliant show. And to everyone out there, this is truly one of the most beautiful shows that you will watch this year at a time when hearing diverse stories is so integral to the world getting along right now at this time in history. And, you know, for all of us who have immigrant parents and grandparents, seeing stories like this come to light in America is just, it's invaluable. I can't even put it into words. And to all the viewers in season 2, you are about to be treated to what it's like a feature film level quality for every single episode. Thank you so much for joining us for this special PaleyFest Fall TV Previews conversation with Apple TV Plus's Pachinko. You can enjoy more of these programs by clicking on the subscribe button below. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.